Several years ago, I first read about the three-bucket strategy on the Retirement Manifesto's website. After researching, I decided that's what I wanted to use. I'll also use a safe withdrawal rate of 3.5%, at least in the beginning. I'm hoping to average 7% returns on my investments, so if I pull 3.5% out, that'll leave 3.5% to cover inflation. And that's without touching the principal. Of course, this is ideal. In order to make 7% returns, though, I'm going to have to keep some aggressive funds in bucket number 3. Some people think the bucket strategy and the 4% rule are two different strategies, and they can be, but I just sort of combined them and used them the way that I wanted to. I customized them to my situation and what I was comfortable with. The bucket strategy is used as a defense when you retire. It separates your income into buckets, at least on paper. Each of the buckets has a specific purpose based on when you need the money. Bucket number 1 is immediate, short-term, no risk and cash. Bucket number 2 is intermediate, mid-term, or low risk. And bucket number 3 is long-term and more risk. People argue that keeping 3 years worth of cash in bucket number 1 is losing opportunities, and that is somewhat true. But cash doesn't mean it's not making any interest. Currently, the cash in my bucket number 1 is making a little over 4%. But the real value of the cash bucket is an insurance policy against market downturns and other emergencies. When bucket number 1 drops below 3 years of cash, I'll need to top it off. But if the market is down, I'll need to wait. If a down market lasts for several years and bucket number 1 actually runs out of money, I may need to dip into bucket number 2. If you have 3 years of living expenses in bucket number 1, it's pretty unlikely that this would happen. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. The longest down market was around 3 years or something like that. If somehow a down market lasted more than 3 years, that's what bucket number 2 is for. That's why it's not as aggressive as bucket number 3. So after a down market, as soon as the markets come back and the funds have recovered, I'll refill bucket number 1 from buckets 2 and 3. So I'll check on my buckets. If the market's down, I won't do anything. But if the market's up, I'll top off my buckets. The intent is to alleviate sequence of return risk by avoiding selling stocks during a bear market. You can use your cash bucket number 1 to fund your retirement spending to allow buckets 2 and 3 to rebound after a bear market. Right now, my bucket number 1 has my high yield savings account and my I bonds. It's zero risk and available. I have close to 3 years of living expenses in bucket number 1 as a hedge against sequence of return risk. Right now, bucket number 2 is most of my pre-tax retirement accounts, my 401a, my 403b, my 457 deferred compensation plan, and my IRA CDs. I plan on shifting money into bucket number 1 at the rate of 3.5% per year. But I will adjust those withdrawals based on the market. Right now, my bucket number 3 has an IRA, my mutual funds, and my Roth IRA. I also plan on doing some Roth conversions along the way. Bucket 3 is more aggressive than bucket 2 since I don't plan on using this money for several years. I've paid off all debt and I live pretty frugally. I need around $41,400 of pre-tax income to fund my annual retirement spending. So I'll subtract any sources of income I have in addition to my portfolio. I have a pension that's $9,600 a year. I have money saved in a bridge account to cover my first year of retirement until I'm 59 and a half, and there should be enough left over to cover a small gap in income until I reach Social Security age. I have side income from YouTube that's been about $900 a month, so I'm just guesstimating $10,800 a year. I can take Social Security at age 62 if I need to. The reduced amount would be about $14,400 a year. So my bridge account, my pension, and my YouTube income is getting me to 59.5. From 59.5 to 62, I'll have my pension and my YouTube income, which together will be about $20,400 a year. The small amount I'll have left over from my bridge funds will bring it up to about $24,000 a year. Then after age 62, I'll have my pension and Social Security, which together will be about $24,000 a year. So if I take the pre-tax income needed from my other sources of income, that equals about $17,400 a year of pre-tax income needed. This is how much I'll need to pull from my retirement portfolio. But my bucket number 1 cash is actually after-tax money. So $17,400 of pre-tax money equals around $15,650 in after-tax money. So multiply that by 3 years and you get $46,950. That's how much I'd ideally like to have in bucket number 1. What I have in there now is about $43,400 in after-tax money. In 2025, I'm planning to rebalance my portfolio to something a little more aggressive. I've mentioned before that I was planning to roll my 401A and my 403B into IRAs. Then in February, my IRA CDs will mature and I'll have to decide what to do with that money. Most of it I'm probably going to roll into an IRA. If the rates are good at that time, I might put a little bit of it back into IRA CDs. So to increase the amount in bucket number 1, some of my bridge account should be left over. I should make some more interest on bucket number 1, and in July I'll be 59.5 and will be able to pull 3.5% from my IRAs. To stay in the 12% tax bracket and to not mess up my ACA subsidies, I will have to be careful. I'm hoping that in a year, my 3-bucket portfolio will look more like this. Bucket number 1, my high-yield savings account and my I-bonds, I'm hoping to have $50,000, thinking positive here. In bucket number 2, I'm hoping to have rolled my 401A, 403B, my 457, and at least some of my IRA CDs into IRAs. So maybe $260,000 here. I'm hoping in bucket number 3 to have a more aggressive IRA with some of my rollovers added. I'll also still have my mutual funds and my Roth IRA, and I'm hoping to have around $225,100. I've mentioned the Retirement Manifesto's bucket percentages before. He says 10% in bucket 1, which is pretty close to what I'll have. He says 27% in bucket 2 and 63% in bucket 3. While he is very smart and this probably is ideal, it's not quite what mine will look like. My bucket 2 will probably have about 48% and my bucket 3 will probably have 42%. I'm just a little bit too conservative for his percentages, even though they do make a lot of sense. You have to customize your buckets to what feels right to you, what lets you sleep at night. So if I get my buckets to look like this, here's what it would go like. In 2025, I would pull 3.5% from bucket 2 and put it into bucket 1. If the market's doing well, I'll probably transfer a similar amount from bucket 3 to bucket 2. If the market's just doing so-so, I probably won't do that. If the market's doing terrible, I won't pull from bucket 2 or bucket 3. I'll just use the cash I need from bucket number 1. I'll make a video about this when I actually do it. The retirement bucket strategy is one way to manage your income in retirement. If you like the style, it can provide stability and allow you to grow your portfolio during retirement. Rebalancing your portfolio at least once a year is recommended. What do you think about the bucket strategy? How would you customize it? Maybe you like a different strategy better. If you want to share what strategy you use or how you've customized a strategy to work for you, feel free to leave a comment. I'm sure everyone would love to read about that. If you're seeing me for the first time, hi, I'm Julie and this channel's Happy on Monday. Thanks for joining me. If you found this helpful, please like. And if you're interested in retiring early, consider subscribing. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Dolly Parton. If you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. Hope to see you again soon.